What's up, members of the Barrio? It's John, coming to you from Pier 86 in Manhattan, and today we're going to be exploring one of the most famous sites in the entire city, the Intrepid Museum. This spot has airplanes, it has a space shuttle, even has a submarine. We're going to find out if it's worth visiting or not. Special shout out to Robert Thornton, one of my Patreons, for suggesting this video. Guys, if you want to join my Patreon and help shape what kind of content we create on this channel, see the link in the description. Let's get inside.
Hey guys, I'm Dylan. I'm an educator here at the Intrepid Sea, Air and Space Museum, and we're going to take a nice tour of the complex today. There's plenty to see with John.
Now we've just stepped onto the ship, and this is very different than your typical museum in New York City. This is living history all around you. I'm such a big history person, so I'm so excited to start this tour.
So welcome on board, guys. We're currently right now on the ship, on board the former USS Intrepid. The ship served the United States Navy for 31 years, from 1943 to 1974. And if you notice one thing when you step on board, it is that the ship is massive. So when we want to talk about features of the ship, we have to use models. We shrink the ship down and we can point things out. It served exclusively in the Pacific and then went on to have many, many years of service beyond that, doing many different things.
There are approximately 30 different planes all over the Intrepid, so if you're an aviation geek, you are going to be in heaven here.
Behind me is our Grumman Avenger. This is the only aircraft that we have in our collection that served during the Second World War. The Avenger was a torpedo bomber. The torpedo bombers in general, they occupy a kind of unique position in aviation history. During the Second World War is arguably the only time that they were actually effective in use against an enemy combatant. Beneath the Avenger, you can see the torpedo that it carried. It was almost 2,000 pounds, quite heavy. And in order to deliver that torpedo into the side of an enemy ship, the pilots had to have nerves of steel. They had to fly very low to the waterline. They were very close to the enemy who were going to be shooting at them. And they had to fly very precisely to accurately deliver the torpedo. But another morale booster that the men had was the scorecard that they painted onto the ship during World War II, showing the success that the pilots had against the enemy, as well as the gunners on board the ship protecting it from enemy aircraft.
How many museums give you this type of exercise? We are just going right up towards the deck, which is the most iconic part of the ship, because, well, you'll see. Is this actually how the Combat Information Center was set up in the 1940s?
To the best of our knowledge, we use photographs and things like that. The ship, when it was decommissioned in 1974, they took a lot of pieces out of it, obviously. So we try to recreate things, and some things were left in situ, as we say. But yes, this is what the Combat Information Center looked like for the men who worked on it when the ship was in service.
We made it to the deck. This is the most iconic, the most famous part of this ship. What can you say about it?
So yeah, this is the flight deck. This is what makes an aircraft carrier an aircraft carrier. This is the airport part of the ship. It's almost 900 feet long, and this is where we store the heart of our aircraft collection, which you can see all around you behind me. So this massive aircraft behind me is our F-14 Tomcat. If you're familiar with the movie Top Gun, this is the aircraft that they were flying in the movie. The F-14 was used by the Navy for almost 3 decades, from the late 70s into the early 2000s, and was really the workhorse of the fleet.
Another really neat fact about the Intrepid is up here, you don't just see planes used by the US. We have an Israeli warplane here used in the Yom Kippur War. I saw an Italian plane over there. It's just like a shrine to aviation. So if this is your thing, you're gonna love it here. I'm thoroughly enjoying this tour so far. Now, you mentioned how this is not just a museum, this is actually a living battlefield, and there were actually kamikaze planes that landed on this very deck we're standing on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I was talking about the scorecard earlier. The sailors were, they wanted to see their contribution to the war effort because they were simultaneously watching their friends and their colleagues die when the ship was in combat. Intrepid was hit by a torpedo, was repaired, came back, and then over the course of the remainder of the war was hit by 4 separate kamikaze aircraft. On November 25th of 1944, the ship was hit by 2 planes within 10 minutes of each other, roughly in the vicinity that we're standing in right now. This is the captain's chair. We can't sit in its pine glass. We're protecting it. The captain sat here, the commanding officer of the vessel. He would have been a pilot at some point in his career, an experienced pilot in order to command an aircraft carrier, and he's very focused on air operations. When the aircraft are taking off, he sits here, he can see them taking off forward, and if he needs to see the landings, he can use the big rear view mirror that's to the left to watch them land. So I said at the very beginning that we're here at the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum. A lot of people don't make the automatic connection to space since we're on board an aircraft carrier that served during World War II. In 2012, as NASA was deciding where to put their retired space shuttles, we were lucky enough to receive Space Shuttle Enterprise. When it arrived here via barge, we craned it up to where we're about to see it, and we built the Space Shuttle Pavilion around it to exhibit it to you guys when you visit. So we see Enterprise here behind me. Enterprise is a prototype. That means that of the shuttle fleet, it is the only shuttle that did not go to space. In terms of size and scale and what we're looking at, it is almost identical to all of the other shuttles. It's missing a few of the key components that would have made it space-worthy. This includes the heat shield, the tiles that are so famous for protecting the shuttle when it re-enters the atmosphere. All of the infrastructure for the engines is not there. It's simulated by lead weights, and it's missing a lot of the critical components up here in the flight deck, the avionics for the shuttle. Enterprise paved the way for the space-worthy shuttles by proving the concept for the space shuttle program, and without it, who knows if any of the other shuttles would have ever gone to space.
This was actually in space with the Russians. It came down in 2005. It's a re-entry module. So unlike the Enterprise, which was, as he mentioned, just used for training and as a prototype, this was actually in space. Not only does the Intrepid have military and space history, but we're standing in front of the Concorde. We're going to show you some commercial airlines history.
Yes, there's only 18 Concordes around the world, and we are lucky enough to have Alpha Delta. This is the true workhorse of the Concorde fleet. Flew about 10,000 flights, and it holds the record for the fastest time across the Atlantic Ocean, making it from New York to London in 2 hours, 52 minutes, and 59 seconds.
By the way, guys, you must book a tour to get on the Concorde. You can't just come from the general public. Little note. So guys, this went out of commission in 2003, and as you can see, this would probably be like today's Economy Plus. I mean, this isn't a bed. You weren't paying for that kind of comfort. You were paying to go across the Atlantic as quickly as possible. So, you know, a little footroom, not horrible. I think it's totally worth paying extra to come in here. Seriously, guys, if you like flying at all.
Hey everyone, so I mentioned before there's plenty to see here at the museum. Behind me is our submarine, the former USS Growler. The submarine served during the height of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union from 1958 to 1964, and its sole purpose was to carry nuclear weapons in case they had to ever use them. Thankfully that was not the case, and you can come and see this vital part of Cold War history here at the museum today.
Alright guys, we are about to enter a Cold War nuclear submarine. You know, living inside a tiny Manhattan apartment, I don't feel so bad anymore. Look at these bunks here. So this kitchen area is really nice. You have checkerboards. Feels like we're back in the 1960s. I also like that we saw a Russian map in the navigation room. You know who they were looking for. This reminds me of some trains I've seen before, like double, triple decker sleeper trains in Europe. This spot is like 3 or 4 museums in one. If you're a fan of history, you're gonna love the Intrepid. I'm putting a link down below in the description with all the information, how much it costs, where you have to go, and also check out our other New York City playlists. Special thanks to all the helpful staff here at the Intrepid, including Dylan. Special thanks to Ben, my camera guy. Guys, thank you so much for watching as always. Until next time.